Welcome to your daily Shanks show with Shankar as your host and Antréa as your co-host.
Hello.
Antréa had a great idea this morning to talk a little bit about our team processes, how we try to organize work inside of Shanks, and really that's for the most part Antréa's territory. So I'm gonna let her start us off.
I think I will begin by talking about the dangers of micromanagement
Mm-hmm.
and how that really stunts the growth of your team. I have seen the most efficient teams operate obviously under systems, and it's that to me, forming the system is the real leadership there. And once you can, it's almost as if you're leading just without being there. How do you
Mm-hmm.
know what to do? Oh, I follow this checklist. Okay, well, who thought of that checklist, or where'd you get it from?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got it from my boss or my superior, or whatever, or whoever was in charge of that, right? So there's leadership through a system that's been left in place, and they're not easy to come up with, which is why it should always be tried and true, something proven, something that works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the most micromanaging people are honestly the ones that don't have these systems in place. And then there's no longer a leader in kind of like this invisible leader. It's a very present, visible leader that's hovering over your shoulder and telling you everything to do. And it's not even that it's necessarily malintended, it's just unnecessary. And some people like to operate that way. Some people like to lead their business that way. But I truly believe the most efficient teams operate with more freedom in teams of teams and empowerment.
Okay, so we recommend using a project management tool that allows you to have checklists and templated scenarios where, for example, if you need to roll out an event, which is something we do quite a bit in our role of chapter leaders of the San Antonio Free Market Medical Association, very often, like right now, we find out, okay, it seems like we have an in-person event on November 3rd. So relatively short time to get everything in place. And because we have done that multiple times, we have a Trello board. Trello is a project management system where all these checklists are already in there, and we just have to assign people to different checklists, and then it just goes like a machine, a well-oiled machine. And it takes, as Antréa says, don't reinvent the wheel, go look for proven systems and then add your flavor to it.
So that is also, we've touched on kind of the repeatable processes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's when that's good
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that you do habitually. The formula never really changes, therefore the outcome never really changes. But
Mm-hmm.
what about when we talk about things that are not repeatable, that maybe you need to have a principle in place?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have proper training, and you have to learn what is really the DNA of the company that you're working for,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can put yourself in the mind of the company, if you will, turn that on and operate in that way. Do you think that you helped me to understand how we were going to operate our business? And how long do you think that was before I started thinking in the same way that you do about a lot of things? Because that was kind of the goal, right?
Well, I guess every leader has that intrinsically, that he or she thinks, okay, this is my way is probably the way to go. At least at the beginning, they think that. And then as they progress, they learn. I certainly am in that situation. They learn that if the business should have any chance to grow, they need to be freed up from micromanagement. Not that I was ever managing, but they need to be freed up from
Not that you ever were?
operations.
Mm-hmm.
No, I wasn't. Do you think I was?
I wouldn't say you were a micromanager. It's interesting though. I have seen you macro manage and like
Mm-hmm.
something very close to micromanaging.
Interesting.
I have seen them both. They didn't exist for very long, but I think it's also very natural and normal
Mm-hmm.
when you have someone take over what you do every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard not to, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a transition from
that's it.
freelancer to agency owner, where as a freelancer you need to micromanage everything you do, because you have to micromanage yourself. And then, yeah, when people join the team, it gets quite scary because you need to transition into relying on people and delegating. But I feel that that has been like a journey of 3 years, 4 years,
Yes.
and now I find myself very often not even wanting to know what's being done and how it's done. And
Yeah.
I also don't, yeah, I just honestly don't want to know. I just want to see. I often tell you, come show me the outcome, and then I give you feedback. And then you implement that with the team in ways that I no longer I understand it, but I don't like follow every step along the way anymore.
So, by the way, because you do that, if you were to do that and completely be hands off, it would almost be macromanagement. And I feel like sometimes that happened during that transition as well, because there was a gap in knowledge and we didn't know it, like with our teams or with myself. And again, one of the things to just fix that is to have a set of processes in place, a system in place.
Yeah.
So there's no longer, well, why didn't you do this? Well, I didn't know I needed to do that. How could you not do this before that? But if you have a series of steps, if you have a way that you do things, it's very hard to, unless you are just truly not being attentive, to miss it. So there are no more assumptions made.
Provided that your team actually uses the systems and the steps. That's another challenge.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the whole point of checking to make sure everything is operating as intended. And it's been a whole journey, really.
Yeah. Well, and then you have recently, I don't know if you introduced it recently, but you told me recently about having peers be each other's quality control.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a very powerful idea, and it's part of the team of teams idea. And maybe we need to explain that topic. So the team of teams is something that I stumbled across as a organization structure for companies that I really liked. In most traditional organization charts that the typical hierarchy is these boxes that are connected with a straight line from top to the bottom. And I would think that most corporate companies are organized like that. There is, however, another philosophy called team of teams, where you have, inside of having that rigid hierarchy, you have every team member be somewhat flexible in their role. Now, they still have one area of expertise. For example, let's say we have a designer, a developer, and a project manager. So each person has their expertise according to their title. And let's just say 80% of the time, most of their energy goes towards just that. However, if one of those people, if, for example, the project manager is on vacation, the designer understands enough of his work and is interested and plugged in enough so that she can step in and do the same work, probably not to the degree of excellence that the project manager would, but to a degree that allows the team to proceed. And so the idea of having teams of teams within your company is that you have a series of small groups, like the triad I was just referencing, that can be very flexible and handle lots of different things. At least, so that's how I understand it in my mind.
Yeah.
Antréa, maybe you have a different way of explaining that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. If I had to sum it up, I would say it's really about consciousness, like shared consciousness,
Yep.
and empowerment.
And shared ownership.
And
right?
shared ownership, which gives empowerment. Like, that's kind of the whole thing. And if you think of like command control leadership styles where it's very top down, it's traditional, and those connections in between are worker to manager. Then you think of command of teams, which is small teams that operate independently, but they still have that rigid superstructure. And as you were just describing, the team of teams, there's a relationship, there's closeness, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a small team. It's an understanding that there is a shared consciousness, there's a shared brain. People aren't shut off necessarily, and you can organize information that way. There's a lot of trust, and there's a bee, and it's really kind of like taking an eyes-on and hands-off approach. So this whole model was created by a general who I believe served in Afghanistan or something like that, and you kind of already did the foundational explanation. But what I have observed is any team to operate has to feel like a team. If you just think of sports, nobody is like, well, I mean, you always have the ones who are like, I'm going to win the game, but that's such an individualistic mindset. And you have superstars on teams. You really, really do. You know, the guy that's always going to make the jump shot. You know, the one that's always that you can count on to guard or bring it home. You have these key players on teams. So nobody's saying that that doesn't exist. But literally the definition of a team, again, comes back to this shared ownership, responsibility, consciousness, all of this stuff that we're talking about. And it's not about command control. You have a coach, you have a leader, it's very clear, but all together, it's the team pulling, rowing in the same direction, functioning with the same goal and vision and all of that. Once you really understand the DNA of the company, you're able to think independently, but you can still come together to score the goal. And I have noticed that when we all come together and there is so much, it's just very clear, first of all, who's doing what. And it's clear who can catch the ball if we need to have that kind of help, teamwork, right? Passing the ball is literally a part of teamwork. And then after you shoot, everybody watches to make sure it goes in the goal. And if we're off target, somebody's going to come swoop up that ball and put it in the basket. And it seems to work. It seems to work when it's not just relying on one person, even if they are a superstar, to make the shot every single time, because there's misses. And if you're not watching, keeping your eye on the ball, you're going to miss it. Yeah.
Well, it works, but I will say it requires a team of A players, because it requires highly motivated people who care about what they do. And I have noticed in the past, there are people who don't want to be part of team of teams.
Yeah, that's
there are people who want to be siloed and who want to be seen as, okay, come only to me if you need this. Otherwise, please leave me alone. So what is very important when you build a team of teams is that you have that culture and that expectation set right from the beginning. And that was now as we are speaking through this, Antréa, that was something we didn't put enough emphasis on in our initial interviews, right? Because I think if we would start with this to the degree that we would even show a diagram of what that looks like, people who don't want that, they would just like not apply for the position anymore, because it is very demanding, and you cannot hide in that situation. You cannot hide in a silo. And that is for what some people want, right?
Well, and it comes down to...
like, how many of you have that situation where they, I don't know, they have we just had that yesterday. We called a hotel, wanted to make a change to a reservation. Okay, the reservations agent is not there. We cannot do anything. Okay, well, you sit at the front desk at the reception. Can you at least look at the entry? No, it's siloed. This lady was responsible for taking phone calls and greeting guests, and she wouldn't touch the reservation system. So again, it's a challenge, and I like how you explained how that comes from the military, because that's really American military style. Is everybody in the team knows the end goal. They know, so that if the superior is taken out, then still the private knows what to do. And that is something that is in stark contrast to other leadership styles. For instance, I believe the Russian military is structured in a way where the generals know and the officers know what the goal is, but the soldier, he or she might not even know why they are, or even where they are. So that is very interesting that you mentioned that.
Well, I like how you said that, not knowing why they are and where they are, where they are and why they are. So that's purpose, right?
Yeah.
And there's a quote from that book: "Purpose affirms trust, trust affirms purpose, and together they form individuals into a working team." If you don't trust your team, why have you hired them? I mean, at least to perform their duties. We're not saying that if you're a quarterback, you should be playing linebacker, or you should be offense if you are really better at I don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't know sports like that.
Neither do I.
But the point is that we're not saying to put everybody in any kind of place, or that everybody has the same skill set, or that everybody can serve the same role. No, but it is about purpose, and it's about knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, drives so much of that team unity. And people are smart. People can figure it out. But if you don't know what the end game is, how can you possibly get there? Like you're lost.
Yeah, I think your analogy of the ball, going into the basket is a good one, because that's the goal. And even the worst sports person, if he or she sees the ball, they can pick it up and put it in the basket. Whereas in other situations where you have siloed approach, someone might stand right next to the ball. There's nobody around to prevent them from picking it up and putting it in the basket, but they won't do it because they'll say, "It's not my job to do that."
Oh my gosh, that is so true. That is so true. And when it comes to some of these superstars, sometimes they don't want to pass the ball because they don't believe that the other team member can take the shot.
Yep.
And that also slows you down, and that also stunts your growth. So what do we do about this? I think as leaders, we have to really sit back and evaluate, have we really let go of the vine? Have we really, done all that we can, number one, to set up the team for success? Because if you don't have those systems in place that we were talking about, you don't have a set of procedures, and SOPs these days, you can hire people to do them for you. You can scout them out online. There's kind of no excuse really, but there has to be a standard in place. There has to be an understanding that each individual knows very clearly what they're doing, and that they don't need you to guide them through, handhold them every single time. Then you need to have the confidence that, okay, I have equipped them with everything that they have to be able to shoot. and I'm going to trust them that they can. If you don't believe, if there's not that trust, even if there's the purpose, you're still not working together in unity.
Yeah. Yep. And I would wrap this up with also mentioning there needs to be shared accountability and responsibility.
Yeah. Yep.
So, for example, if someone does pick up the ball and tries to put it in the basket, but he misses, then it's not about blaming that person, but it's about saying, well, thank you for trying, and next time, you should probably take this angle and it will work. Because what happens if you blame that person, they'll say, okay, I'll never try again.
Absolutely. That is not a team spirit.
Yeah.
It's really not a team
Well,
spirit.
and that is also not a leadership. Like I have plenty of occasions throughout the day where I'm tempted to say like, why was that done like that? But I always refrain from that because you know how my saying goes, if you don't want to break anything, then don't touch anything. And I'd rather...
If you think you could have done it better, you should have done it yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting close to our home here, and this was an amazing conversation, and we really didn't know very specifically where it would go when we started, but I think that's almost always one of the better conversations when we keep our creativity really open.
So let us know what your experience has been, either leading a team or being on a team, and the highs and lows of that leadership style that you were under or that you implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have like some really cool story that you want to share, you can always comment and let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Please share. Please continue to watch our content, and we will.
And if you are an A player and you know about project management and you want to be team of teams, send me a note.
Let us know.
Because we might just hire you. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
See you later.